Hello, this is Lawrence R. Harvey, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com. Although how you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com without your head, I simply don't know.
Alright, welcome to the Station of Decapitation without your head. I am Nasty Neil.
This is Annabelle Lecter.
And joining us off the bat here, actor, drummer, performance artist. I think he's an ass kicker as well. We have Matt Fraser on the line.
How very delightful to be with you both.
Yes, it's excellent.
It's wonderful. We're so happy to have you.
Now we have to bring up Paul the Illustrated Seal coming off American Horror Story Freak Show. Yeah, amazing season. Amazing character, amazing performance. How did that all come about for you? Was it something that you sought out, or did they find you?
Thank you so much. Well, I actually I had heard about it, but my agent in Britain had been unable to secure me an audition, which I was rather disappointed about. And I put the whole thing, in the back of my head and forgot about it. And then I was doing a show with my wife, Julie Atlas Muse. We were doing an adult version of Beauty and the Beast, which smashed it and got rave reviews and sold out audiences in London. And we took it to New York, excuse me, in March, where we performed it in the Lower East Side at the Abrams Arts Center. And again, got such great reviews from the New York Times that it sold out. And unbeknownst to me, a woman was just in New York, thought, I'll go to the theater, read the review and thought, oh, that sounds interesting, and went along. And then when she saw me on stage, she thought to herself, well, hold on, my friend is in LA. She's casting a show that was requiring differently shaped actors. And so suggested to them that they call the theater, and they got my details. And so actually I got the audition from the most random piece of coincidence and chance you could ever wish to imagine.
Now, was that character already? I assume like they wrote that for you, or was there like some character there?
It was a kind of bit of both, really. Once I did my audition on Photo Booth, I just recorded some pages on Photo Booth. Actually, I was reading the part of the Burned Man, the Dennis O'Hare character from the series 1. Anyway, I suppose they knew they liked my body. They just wanted to make sure I could act, I guess.
Right.
So once that was in the bag, sorry, I just started thinking about Dennis O'Hare. Then looked at the picture of you with a leather mask on, and completely forgot the question. What was the question?
Oh, the character, was it already written? Yeah.
So when we got talking, they were like, "Yeah, we want you to be this guy, the illustrated." To the lizard man. And I'm like, okay, so you've obviously looked up online, you've seen the lizard guy. For some reason that's not worked out, but you now have it in your head that you want a lizard guy who's tattooed all over. And I said, well, look, what I do is I traditionally do Sealer the Seal Boys act, and I'm called the Seal Boy in sideshow parlance. That's my character. So where are we going to go from there? And they were like, well, I don't know. We want the illustrated guy. And I'm like, well, why don't you have the illustrated Seal Boy? And they were like, okay, we can go with that. And then there was a lot of debate about my face, because they wanted my face to be tattooed, and I didn't want my face to be tattooed. And amazingly, well, I kind of stuck my heels down and said, I'm not going to do it if I have to have my face tattooed. But I mean, I didn't put it as confrontationally as that. And amazingly, they agreed. I then, obviously, once that was secured and I had that title, went to my very good friend Jason the Illustrated Penguin, who's a real sideshow artist, and explained to him that that was what the character was going to be called, and that yes, it was similar, but many people have been called Illustrated in the past. And and I also did a big shout out on my Facebook page and introducing all my new 8,500 Twitter follower fans from American Horror Story and my new followers on Facebook to Jason, saying, I'm the fake illustrated guy from the TV series Freak Show, but this guy actually really is the real one and doing the real Freak Show. So I wanted to make sure that was all good. And then the TV company were happy with the illustrated Seal Boy as a character, and I was happy with it. And we ended up with that Paul the Illustrated Seal.
Yeah.
It would have been a totally different show, I think, if your face had been covered up for two different reasons. For you professionally, because you're more recognizable without tattoos all over your face. Yeah. And I don't feel like the expressions were translated nearly as well without seeing your face. And like you said in the show, you have a good face. Well, and it works beautifully. I'm very glad they agreed with your decision.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you agree. Actually, in regards to that line, I've got a beautiful face and all that, that was the writers. You know, I am an actor and I do the job I'm given. I would never say that. I actually think that in terms of, you know, what it would have been like if I'd have been normal and had long arms, I think I probably would have been a bit asshole. And I think, or even more of an asshole, depending on your point of view. But I'm very glad that I don't have long arms, and I never wanted them, frankly. You know, for about 3 minutes when I was 13, but apart from that, no. But yeah, again, I can't quite remember what the question was.
It was just it was
just acknowledgement. Nice call.
Well, no, here's the thing. I didn't want my face tattooed because I thought, well, this is my big break. This is, you know, I've never been on American TV, really. And I like exactly what you said. Your face is what sells the emotion and the acting. And I was really worried that a completely illustrated face would negate that. Having said that, when Grace Gummer, who plays Penny, the lizard girl, eventually, the Candy Striper originally, when she has her face tattooed by her evil father and comes to live with us freaks and be my girlfriend, you know, her acting showed through the tattoo. So I was probably wrong in retrospect, but I'm still glad I made that call because, you know, those tattoos took 2 to 2.5 hours every day. And that's just if I had the wife beater on. If I was topless, it was like a 3.5 hour job. And if I'd have had the face as well, that would have been really disruptive. And the way they take it off is, I mean, you can say it in loads of like professional industry standard ways, but the bottom line is they just rub it off your face with solution or rub it off your skin with solution. And I didn't want that happening on my face with all these weird industrial chemicals every day for 6 months, you know.
You mentioned Dennis O'Hare earlier, and I just thought he was just a tremendous villain on the show. I liked him on all the seasons, but I thought he really shined this season. And what was he like?
I agree.
What was he like to work with, and what did you think of his demise? Because I thought that was one of the greatest scenes in the whole series.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'll come back to that. Dennis is a fantastic guy to work with. He is a wonderful actor, and he brought so much to the show. He's one of those rare actors that's on an acting contract with the television company. So he's not just hired for specific productions. The actual TV company hire him as an actor, and then they put him in various productions that they're doing. That's like old school studio.
Yeah, that's what
stuff.
I was just thinking.
Yeah.
And it's just a testament to what a wonderful character actor he is. You know, it really is. Now, coming to the demise, yeah, I agree with you. It was one of my favorite scenes in the entire series. And Dennis was brilliant, and that was a bloody arseache. It was really cold by then in Louisiana, and that was fake rain, but that was torrential fake rain that we had to do over and over again, like you do in film. For every one thing you see, we've done something 7 times, you know. And that was like a 6-hour shoot, that rain thing. That was tough. We all and Dennis had the worst of it, quite easily had the worst of it. And he was a real trooper, never complaining once, you know, going on. But the reason I want to say why that's so special is because of Lonnie Perister, the director, because Lonnie Perister is directly related to Todd Browning, who directed and produced the original film Freaks, from where that seems an homage. In fact, his grandmother, his wife's grandmother, I think, was Todd Browning's partner until he died. And indeed, he had Todd Browning's passport on him, and he showed it to me. And on that big dinner scene where we're explaining to Dennis what's going to happen to him, basically by explaining the plot of Freaks, he secreted the passport under a bowl of fruit so that Todd would be with us in some way during that scene. And me and Lonnie were probably the 2 biggest experts on the film Freaks and the whole sideshow genre on the entire floor and set. And we kept scampering up to each other like excitable schoolboys, going, "Oh my God, this is so amazing!" and then going back again. And that's why I was very happy to spend 6 hours in the fucking freezing cold rain, because I knew that Lonnie was at the controls and he was making an excited homage to that famous scene in Freaks. And it was really genuinely thrilling to be a part of that. It really was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was a really excellent scene, and it could have been. I know that other films and productions will do things like that, and it feels almost like cheating. But it was so well done. And people, if you'd seen Freaks, you knew exactly what was going on, and it was really enjoyable to watch all of you perform it.
Oh, thank you. Like I say, I think of all the actors, I think I was the one that was getting the full resonance of what was happening, even though everyone nailed that scene. And I don't think I'll ever be in a scene again that harks back to a piece of disability cinema history in the way that you know.
What does that movie mean to you, Freaks?
Well, it started. I mean, when I first watched it, it was The Enemy. You know, I was watching something that I found very challenging to watch. But I didn't have any disability politics then. And I don't want to get bogged down into disability politics while we're talking. But suffice to say, once I'd had my rebirth and I considered myself politically a disabled person as a badge of honor and warrior and all that, freak shows very quickly calibrated themselves into the cultural homage of the disabled performer and what I would have done if I'd have been around then. And I really studied the film. I half fell in love with Frances O'Connor, the armless woman in it. I became a huge fan of Johnny Eck, tracking him down to his retirement in Baltimore, searching secondhand shops in Baltimore for photos of him and finally getting one. I'm really, really into all aspects of that film. It still holds the world record for the most disabled actors in any Hollywood film, something that I hope one day to supersede, but you never know. And it's a standalone film in many ways, in terms of portrayal of circus sideshow and freaks, and in terms of portrayal of disabled people and the variety of different bodies that we can have. It's just a standalone film and just one of my favorites. I'd love to be able to try and think of a black, gay and female equivalent in terms of cinema, but I'm a white, straight, disabled guy, so I can't.
Well, maybe they could remake it as a black, gay, a female film. But...
I'm game. I'll buy a ticket with that.
So how old were you when you saw that film?
When I first saw it, I was about 26. Yeah.
And you, I know you didn't get into acting that I know of until you were in your 30s?
At least about 35, 36, yeah.
So what got you into acting? Why did you, I don't know what you were doing before then. What were you doing before then? Then how did you make this transition to decide this is what I want to do?
Well, both my parents were actors. My father died when I was 21. He was an old school British stage actor, splattering the phlegm in the back wall. And my mother still is an actor at 76. She's just finished an experimental film, which I'm very proud of her. So I grew up in the theatre. When I was 5, I wanted to be an actor. But when I got to secondary school, high school for you, teenage sniggers about the disability kid at the school audition and stuff like that just put me off. And then a year later, punk rock happened. And I had a vehicle by which to express myself that didn't mean the negative impact of disability and being teased and all that. So I became a punk. And I couldn't play any instruments. And my mother was having an affair with a drummer at the time. And he would keep his drum kits around at our house. And I said, will you set it up at least in my bedroom? And he was like, well, yeah. And he got interested into seeing if he could teach the little arm kid to play the drums. He taught me the paradiddle, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, and some basic rudiments. And then said, get on with it. I'll be back in a month. And I just started playing along with records. And before I knew where I was kind of punk drumming. And then bands happened, and so that was my liberation into it all. But I was very much in denial of my disability. I always avoided the company of young children because that's all they want to talk about. And polite people don't talk about it, so I got away with it. And I was in a rock band, where you're perpetually 18, no matter how old you are. So it wasn't until I started looking at some disability politics through my other politics of. I'd gone on the march to free Nelson Mandela. I'd gone on the march to support women's right to choose abortion. That's just who I am. That's the kind of person I am. I'm a sick motherfucker and I love the freaky weird shit. I love strippers. Don't get me wrong. I'm a complicated guy politically, but I have politics and I'm not ashamed of it. Anyway, so eventually the disability stuff hit me. And my brother, I think conspiratorially in retrospect, invited me to see this play, and it was a group of people with cerebral palsy and all different disabilities on the stage, sold out, everyone having a brilliant time. And I suddenly realized I was wrong and that it wouldn't necessarily be embarrassing for people to watch me. And I pretty much left the band. In the next 2 months, I left the band and joined the theatre company, an all-disabled one. Did that for a couple of years, got some chops, didn't go to drama school, got some chops, did a couple of plays, had a couple of lucky breaks and had an equity card and then an agent. And then, I had my first TV thing. And then suddenly I was a professional actor. It all happened over about 3 years. And that,
wow.
and that was by the time I was about 38. And now I'm 53. And I've struggled a lot. Typically, I'll get a little bit of TV work or independent film or something in Britain about once every 5 years. The rest of the time, I'm just doing my own projects, but that's fine. I'm a busy guy, and I do a lot of cabaret and sideshow still anyway, and striptease hosting. But this happening in America changes everything because of the sheer volume of people who've seen it. I can't walk down the street now in America for 5 minutes without being stopped. Yeah. And after 3 episodes, people would stop me and go, "Oh my God, is it you? Are you the guy from American Horror Story?" By a month later, people were saying, "Excuse me, are you Matt Fraser?" And then just like 4 weeks ago at the baggage carousel at LA, some guy came up to me and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Fraser, can I have your autograph?" And I thought, fucking hell, the transition over 13 weeks from unknown British disabled theatre actor to that guy on American Horror Story, Matt Fraser. It's quite stunning. Overwhelming, really. Overwhelming.
Yeah.
The timing is really amazing, too, because horror has not really been very acceptable for mainstream audiences. And really now I know many, many people who are not interested in horror films at all, but enjoy this show. And
right.
So now you're just in with part of, the normal, quote unquote, normal culture that wouldn't necessarily be interested in horror. And it's great because it can people can see what you've done for work outside of this. That's very artistic and very deep. And where you can be propelled from here, where do you think that your career will go for now? And at this point in time, I know you can't predict, but where would you like it to go?
Well, obviously, there's some things that are maybe bubbling that I can't talk about. But, I would think probably the same. I think probably once every 3 years, I'll get a really amazing job. And in between, I'll do my own projects. It's just before my own projects were black box studio events for 50 people. And now my own projects can hopefully be low budget movies. And of course, I've been at this for 20 years. And like yourselves, horror, I'm sure you guys, it's your main genre, but it's one of my favorite genres. And we could talk at length. And I'd like to know your opinion about something to do with Nightmare on Elm Street. But we'll get back to that.
Okay.
But I think the juxtaposition of deformity and, used within a horror framework is sweet, baby, because it pushes people's visceral reactions. People have a reaction to deformity. They just do. It's an animal one. It's usually one of displeasure. It can be quickly superseded by thought. But to make the deformed people the good guys, ostensibly, so you kind of get double horror. You're horrified by the good guys. You're horrified by the bad guys. And you're horrified that the bad guys are being horrible to the good guys. So I think they were really clever the way they juxtaposed freak show within the horror genre, as was Todd Browning all those years ago. There are a lot of fans who are not horror fans, absolutely, but pretty much 90% of the people that approach me for an Instagram photo or what have you are African American or Hispanic Latina women between 18 and 33, roughly. That I went on a second line. Are you guys New Orleans? I can't remember.
Massachusetts.
So a second line for any listeners that don't know. And here's the English white guy telling. I think it's hilarious. The second line comes from a funeral, the New Orleans funeral, famous dragging down the street all sad and then partying on the way back. They do that in wedding format, for funeral format, but they also have these moving parties that are just there and regions and wards will represent. And it's a kind of battle between two sound systems. Although no one's battling, everyone's just having a good time, and people are selling all sorts of things. Beer out the back of their car, a lot of pot, you know, the kind of thing. And at the last second line I went to, I was mobbed by awesome ghetto people. I don't know if that's politically incorrect to say that. I don't mean anything bad.
Don't worry about it.
But they, you know, these were people who I would not want to get on the wrong side of.
Right.
You know, there were people that were economically challenged. There was a lot of gold flying around. There was a lot of gangster shit flying around. And they were coming up to me and going, "Oh, I got it, you, Paul!" And then getting their like humongous fucking boyfriend to take a photo. And the guy's like, "What the fuck's going on? Who's this like weird deformed white guy? Why is my girlfriend want a picture with him? Because he doesn't watch it. She watches it." So I thought that was really funny. That happens a lot to me now. I think it's awesome. It's truly awesome. My wife, Julie, because we were like, why is it this demographic? And I'm like, well, it's just the people who watch it. She thinks it's because they identify with outsiders. And that Paul is definitely an outsider, you know, and I am.
Interesting.
And there might be an element of truth in that. I don't know.
I know, at least in New England, we are, myself, Neil, we can be very silly together, but we tend to be very reserved. We wouldn't necessarily approach someone. And the people I know who are Black, they're so much more open and are approachable and will approach people. Those that I know. It's a very big difference in cultures. So
there is, and I noticed
that
this
could be
as well.
part of it.
I noticed one of the other genres I adore are kung fu films, martial arts films. And I went to see Ong Bak, which is a brilliant Thai martial arts film, in Times Square on a Monday afternoon at the 3 p.m. showing. And there was me and 15 African-American guys in there. And every time the hero whooped somebody, they were like, "Yeah, that's what I'm talking about." And people would like get up and go, "Come on," and then sit down again. It's so infectious. Like by halfway through, I was doing the same thing. I think it's a great part of culture that should spread to more of us. Can I ask my question about Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yes.
Forget. Now, that was the first Freddy film, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it had what we could agree is a proper plot. There was an internal logic that was set up and observed and honored throughout, right? It had a beginning, middle, and an end, of course. I think, though, as those Freddy films developed and other horror films at the time, I can't mark it, but I would have been about 23, 4 around at that time. Horror films suddenly decided that they didn't need to have to observe fully throughout the film and honor the internal logic that they set up at the beginning of the film. And you know, and they just want slap bang horror effects and fuck how you get them. And I personally think, very strongly I might add, that really undermines a film. And if you have an internal logic and can observe and honor it throughout, the film is so much stronger. And therefore, if it's horror, so much more scary, I think.
That's really an excellent way to say it, which I haven't thought about it in that way. But both Neil and myself, we're horror fans, but we don't like a lot of horror movies because of that kind of thing. You know, you have these series on and on and on. Just what you said. It starts out with the strength, and then it just gets diluted just so they can push out more and more and more. Now they have all these movies that are remakes and re-envisionings and reboots, and they're just very hard to enjoy because it seems like they just have this cookie-cutter way of here's a movie, without caring about what's really happening.
I think what Matt was saying too is you have to stay true to like how I always phrase it, like the rules of what you set up. Like just for example, if you have a zombie movie and you have the rules that you have to shoot them in the head to kill them, whatever, you can't all of a sudden later on in the movie just shoot them in the chest and they die. For
Absolutely.
Simple way of saying
I mean, people like me really care about that shit. And the second a rule is broken, I lose so much respect. I kind of lose interest. It's terrible, and maybe I'm becoming an old man in that respect. I hope not. Hey, and the other exciting horror news I have is that I've just hooked into this awesome guy, and we've decided we're going to work together. He's a producer and director and writer of horror films with a reasonable track record. His name is William Butler. And I'm not going to say the title of the film that he's asked me and my wife to be in. That's also going to star some quite well-known people, but well-known in our world, the horror, freak, sideshow, striptease, burlesque, cabaret world, rather than the normal world out there. But I'm really thrilled because, you know, I've always wanted to play horror, and I've always wanted to be the bad guy, use my disability, exploit the fuck out of it, make it critsploitation, and really go there, because I think that it would be really good. I just watched a film called The Sinful Dwarf, because not the best film in the world.
No, but yeah.
But the entire kind of logic of why it's so scary is how creepy the dwarf is. It doesn't get more complicated than that. And he like hams it up by like dragging one of his feet and like leering and dribbling and stuff. I would love to do something like that.
Yeah,
Now, do you feel like that kind of character is so great because it really is kind of a taboo to take a person's differences and play on them. Horror, I think, is a little more open-minded about that, but in general, people won't touch it.
No, they won't. That's why I was amazed at American Horror Story, because, you know, we are talking about Fox TV after all, and like to have real deformed people there in a freak show setting is kind of out there, really, if you think about it. But then, you know, Ryan Murphy has so much power, coupled with his ideas and creativity are always a few years ahead of everybody else's game, that, you know, it came to be, and I'm very happy about that. I cannot only imagine and quake with anticipation as to Series 5, what that's going to be. I have heard rumors of where it's going to be set, but, you know, they are just rumors, and we have no information. I have no information as to whether I'm going to be asked to be in one of the episodes or not. I'm imagining that all the regular famous five will be in it, but except maybe Jessica, because she's publicly said she won't. But I certainly have no idea, but you damn well know I'd love to be. And I would love to play a baddie. You know, I think you guys would love this club we have over here. It's called the Double R Club. And it's a monthly cabaret club that is Lynchian, as in David Lynchian, as in you have to bring your game of darkness to the cabaret. And I always do my darkest work. I recently just did a piece where I ended up naked, covered in blood, fake blood, on stage, thinking, yep, I'm back where I belong. Because it was weird, but I was so overwhelmed by all the attention and TV glamour that when I ended up back in the Bethnal Green Working Man's Club in the East End of London, covered in fake blood, it was actually really reassuring and grounding for me. But there we go. That's obviously where I'm from. But you'd love it because it's basically horror on stage, and you don't often see that. It's a very rare thing to see real horror depicted on stage, but they do it regularly at the Double R Club. So, you know, Without Your Head should definitely make a visit to London and try and check out the Double R Club.
That would be sweet. We've been talking about it for a while.
Do you show short films on your website?
Yeah, if people would submit them, but we do sometimes do what we call movie night, and we all get together and watch a film in what they call SyncTube, and then it's a lot of fun because everyone can interact while you're watching the movie.
Oh, that sounds fun.
But if you had something you wanted hosted to the website, then we could absolutely do that if you're thinking of something.
Well, I'm about to make a Lynchian in the style of what we just talked about, short, with 3 other people, one of whom is a fetish model, the other is my wife, and the other is a man who can suck his own penis. But the big...
He's more the talent, but we want him on board just for that.
Right? I was like, you're booked.
That's how I slipped the disc in my back. Just could not do
it. The big project that I have that is the dream job is a horror film project that I've got, which is called Freak Blood. And it's set in Coney Island, USA, the sideshow there, employing a lot of the freaks that work there. It is an imminent zombie genre. I'm just about to do the second pass on the script. I have a battle plan that was sort of aiming for the 500,000 mark, which is, you know, sort of a go fund it superior attempt. But now that I've been allowed through a couple of doorways in terms of film funding and things, and met William amongst something, I'm probably going to hold back and see if I can get it up to about 1 million or something, because the film will just be better. But that's my dream job. That's my like secret plan and dream project that I'm going to hold with me for the next 5 years. And it's my absolute intention, resolve and rule to make it within the next 5 years. But that will be hopefully a proper horror film and really use people's deformities and exploit them and be a little pastiche and all these things that good modern horror films tend to be. But it's just a question of finding the director and a couple of famous actors who will agree to be in it to bankroll it, you know. I've got one porn star who I'm hoping will be in it. Hoping that she wants to transition into acting soon. She's extremely popular online. And, you know, we use these weirdo techniques, don't we, to get stuff made. I mean, you must have interviewed countless people who've funded their horror project in the most bizarre ways, you know.
Yeah, it's and that this generation now, this time now, is it is becoming a big thing to do the crowdfunding. Even established people like Rob Zombie has done it. And,
really?
Yeah. Which I don't know how. I'm kind of mixed on that as someone who's already made big time movies to use the crowdfunding. I don't know how I feel about it. It's still kind of split, but
yeah, in the same way that we all felt about Amanda Palmer getting her own fans to pay for her last album, which then made 1 million. But I'm not commenting. I'm just saying it is a little complicated, isn't it?
Right, because there's other sides to it. It's maybe it's something that he really wants to make, and he can't get anyone to back it. So why shouldn't he?
Absolutely. You know, he is the one.
We'll give everybody a free ticket to go who donated to his cause.
I don't believe that's happening.
Probably not.
He's the one guy I would like to work for in horror. I would love him to book me as an actor. I'd pretty much do anything for him. Once I saw, 1,000 Corpses and then Devil's Rejects, I was sold, really.
Well, which one do you prefer? Because we've interviewed pretty much all people from both films, and most of them prefer the second one.
What, you mean the people who are in it?
Yeah, they prefer the second one, but
of course they did. They got paid and they got proper trailers in the second one.
Well, that could be the reason. But as a fan, which one did you prefer?
Aesthetically, the first one. Although I thought the second one was probably a better film. And that last section where they play the entire, is it Freebird?
It's like 7 minutes.
Just so over the top. Oh, the torch. There's a really nasty bit in it though, the torture scene, which I've only ever felt that kind of nastiness ever before from a Russ Meyer film, when the guy beats up a woman in the bathtub. It just crosses my weird women line along the way somewhere. But no, I actually prefer House of 1,000 Corpses because I love that B-movie genre, and I thought he observed it so well.
I know that torture scene you talk about, and I think what's kind of powerful is it kind of flips the movie where you're kind of rooting, you're always kind of rooting for the villains in that movie, and then all of a sudden who should be the good guy, the cop, is the guy who's doing the torturing.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you think, well, is he right doing that, and am I wrong, rooting for the villains of this movie? And it's interesting though.
But villains we talked about it a lot on set. Villains are inherently more interesting than heroes. You might not want to win, but you want to watch them so much.
Yeah, it's something we talked about a lot on the show, and it's very unusual where you have a villain in something that you really hate and that you don't want to see succeed. In our opinion, anyway. There's only a few of them. I don't know if you've ever watched True Detective last season.
I didn't, no.
Okay, well, I just thought the villain in it was someone like you just despise, and it's very rare to have a villain that you actually don't want to see succeed.
I suppose a paedophile villain would be a fairly easy one.
Yeah, well, that was probably why. Yeah.
Oh, he's the paedophile.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're rooting for the pedophile, then
yeah. Yeah, good luck, buddy. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I thought when the remake of Freddy, because they really went into him being a pedophile. It was hard to because like people have tattoos of Freddy, and it's like he just
oh my
seemed like
God.
a weirdo. Then
those people have got kids now, inevitably,
Yeah.
Oh shit.
What are some of the other current horror films that you enjoy?
Current horror films. I haven't seen a new horror film in ages. I'm a big fan of gore, and I like the Italian style, the sort of 70s, 80s Italian horror films. But new ones, I'm trying to actually think when the last discernible horror film I saw was that was new. Can you name a few of the last releases? I can't think of any of them.
Babadook,
one that I could think of that we always recommend that we both enjoyed. Did you see the original Maniac, the 80s movie Maniac?
Maniac, no.
Oh, it's this creepy guy in New York. He was abused as a kid, and he's turned into like this big, kind of gross, doesn't take care of himself man. He's a serial killer, and you see him do the serial killings. But it's very different from like a Freddy, Jason kind of film. And it was remade by Elijah Wood, and he's a completely different body, polar opposites, and they kind of tweak the story a little bit to make sense for his size. But it's very, very good. I guess he takes all of his money from doing The Hobbit and things like that and puts them into his own projects like Maniac.
Well, absolutely. And, that's hopefully what I will do. I've already got, the film fund, a bank account. Although, I also like to observe the golden rules. Never use your own money in a project. That should be the golden rule. But it's hard because, we have these projects that we love. And I have this love of Coney Island and freak shows that, it wasn't quite satisfied with the TV series. It was great and everything, but there's more extreme stuff out there. I like really extreme things. I just do. I like really extreme shit, and there isn't enough of it out there. Less and less, I mean, I've been in a couple of homemade horror films, just because they were horror. Like giving my services for nothing to people making homemade films, because I do a scene where I pick up a girl and she takes me home and then she bites my cock off and I bleed to death or something. Who wouldn't want to be in a scene like that? So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But the film ended up being, not the sort of thing that was ever even going to be in a Fright Fest. Oh, I'll tell you the last horror film I really liked. I'm actually in it as a cameo, and it's called Inbred. And it's from Alex Chandon. It's a British film from 2 years ago, and the cigarette packet description is bad youth are taken out of a youth offenders prison for a healthy week in the countryside by well-meaning liberal social workers who thinks it'll be good for them. Unfortunately, they choose the wrong remote village in Yorkshire, where they kill visitors, and everyone in the village is in on it. It's one of those ones where they're all in on it. Films, I love those, and that's truly terrifying in places. It really is very low budget, but oh my God, it's scary, but funny as well.
Yeah,
funny.
I'll have to check that one out. Just for extreme films, I don't know if you consider horror or not, but have you seen a Serbian film?
The what?
A Serbian film? That's the name of it. A Serbian film?
I haven't even heard of it. No.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. It's very weird.
I would suggest checking that movie out. Very, very extreme. And as far as I know, we have the only podcast interview with the directors, Sergeant Spasajevic. So, little plug for us. But yeah, I think that's a great movie. Came out a few years ago.
It has a very otherworldly, what is going on feel.
Right.
It's very good. It's a retired porn star who now has a family, a young son and a wife. And he's approached by one of his former co-workers, female, who says there's this man, this very artsy, high-end director who wants you specifically to play a part in this new film. And so he's brought to this giant mansion and interviewed, and the director is clearly not right. The whole environment is very, it's normal, but you can tell something is off about it, and then he has to decide if he wants this role or not, and where it goes from there is it's something else. A lot of people won't watch it or can't watch it.
Yeah.
Wow, it sounds great.
Yeah, it's interesting.
One of the films I would love to be in and maybe help make is one with a character where I play a disabled person that's convinced that all disabled people should be eradicated, but thinks that they're the right person to do the eradicating because they'll get the person to understand why they need to be killed. Because I'm one of them, they'll understand why when I explain it. And I'm trying to be kind in doing it, but have to kill you now.
That's fascinating. That's interesting.
I think that is a great setup for a character. And of course, his facade would be he probably works with disabled people and he's a really great guy. And, you know, I think that could be quite interesting. But, you know, I always think about the disability stuff and then I pull back and think, hold on, Matt, no one else is interested in that shit. You know, they want a cop and a psycho killer and some kids missing and, you know, the normal stuff. I'm just like, no, use your psychology. If the victim, which is always a fucking scream queen, it's always a woman, right? If the victim is a woman and you're going down that route, give her a fucking limp as well. Like, or cast someone who's in a wheelchair. When they're trying to escape from the villain, isn't the jeopardy much more? And isn't it more scary because of that? I'm like, why aren't people using it? But I don't know. Because
they won't touch it. Because they're afraid that they'll be offensive or people... You know, use a clown in American Horror Story, and all the clowns are freaking out about it. You know what I mean?
I know. It's so funny. We laughed and laughed and laughed when we heard that. You know, John Carroll Lynch, who plays Twisty the Clown, what a great... I mean, if ever there was a difference between a character and an actor who's a person, I can't think of a bigger one than that, Twisty and John. But Twisty's malevolence just emanates from his body, doesn't it? When you see him in that first episode,
I really think it's an iconic visual. It's going to be an iconic character.
I actually agree with you. I really do. I think they did a great job, and Mike McCash and Chris Nielsen and Dave and all the other people who designed all the prosthetics and all the evil shit, they surpassed themselves, I thought, in this series. Damn it, if they don't get some kind of award, I don't know what, you know.
I was hoping when you were saying when there was a character and the actor, I was hoping you were going to say that we're so similar to their characters.
No, I'm afraid not. I mean, I'm not at liberty to talk about John's private life, but when he was in New Orleans, we were all in New Orleans. That's where we filmed. And, you know, typically we'll work intensively for 4 or 5 days, then maybe get 3 or 4 days off. We're staying there for 3 or 4 weeks or whatever he was, in and out. On his time off, he did the most amazing things for very poor, down and out people who were still post-Katrina-y, if you know what I mean. When I found out, I was stunned. Actors don't usually do that sort of thing. They're usually very far up their own asshole, you know. And that man is not. He really isn't. And nor, you know, to be fair, nor were the other actors. Evan Peters, who played Jimmy, the lobster guy. I couldn't meet a nicer guy if I tried. Could not meet a nicer guy if I tried. Finn as well, who played Dandy. A really good evil character, I thought.
Yeah.
That was great. And I think a lot of people felt the same. At first, you just want to punch him. But then he really grew on me.
It was a great character.
Here's this villain really just... That villain you love, that made sense. That this is the kid that grows into that villain you love.
Yes, I believed it very well. It developed beautifully, and very awesome guy. You know, I did quite a few burlesque shows and sideshow shows while I was there because I'm hooked into that community in New Orleans. And, you know, I would mention on set or post a little post-it note in the makeup truck, you know, doing a show tonight, if anybody wants to come. Most of the crew would come. He came to every single one. Like Finn came to every single one. Enjoyed himself immensely. You know, we had a whiskey or two together from time to time, but he was always the first on set and uber professional. You know, a bit of a tour de force as a human being, really. And one of the great horror creations. I think Twisty and Dandy were two really good baddies from horror that came out of that series. Really do.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you familiar with the series beforehand? Had you watched it?
A little bit, but not much, because you have to have quite an extended cable package to have to watch it in Britain. And in New York, me and Julie don't have a TV, although we're getting one now. And so, no, I had watched like a couple of episodes of the first series, and the last episode of the second series. I hadn't seen any of Coven, though. Mm-hmm. I still haven't. Waiting for my fucking box set from Fox.
No, I know I interviewed Naomi Grossman in L.A. once, and this was before, and she must have known that she was going to be in this, because I'd mentioned if she would be in a future series of American Horror Story, and she said, I can't really talk about that. But I saw that she posted pictures where she actually got injured during what she called, I think she called it the freak orgy scene. And I was just wondering if you remember filming that, and because she said it was real bad weather, and she actually got her foot was hurt, and if you had any injuries from the orgy scene.
Well, it was the first big scene we did. So it was like the third day filming, and the scene is we're all smoking opium, and then we have an orgy. And I remarked glibly to myself, but was overheard by a couple of people on the set. I bet I'm the only fucker here who's actually been at a real orgy and actually smoke opium. And which somebody turned around and said, except, and then said one of the really famous actors. And then we all laughed, and I was shocked. I can't say who it was, but she's older and female, and I think probably guess which. Right, so anyway, it was the 70s, right? So, no, I don't get injured at orgies. I've done a lot of hosting of the erotic awards. I'm no stranger to the torture garden, fetish places. I've hosted at sex clubs before. I've stepped over people fucking on stage to get to the microphone. I've remained injury-free thus far. So a mere depiction of it wouldn't do that to me. But Naomi got her... I have to be careful there, don't I? Yeah. Naomi got... yeah, you have... When you work for the big guys, my God, you have to be careful. You can't just say what happened. So she hurt herself in a different incident that was not during filming, actually. We had broken for the day, but we were still in the vehicle. It was very treacherous out there. When it rains on the bayou, it gets very muddy very quickly, and there's a lot of vehicles, and it's basically the kind of injury that would happen to anyone having to negotiate a difficult festival site or something in Britain. And we all saw it, it was that thing where we saw it about to happen, but none of us could do anything about it. And then it happened. But, she's a trooper. And Naomi is great. We had a lot of laughs together, me and Naomi. I don't know anyone who's so good at building a fan base and taking care of it as I do her. And Pepper, again, is one of the great creations. I mean, you talk about casting and stuff, and, where do you get a good pinhead? People would say, and sure, I get it. But it's a delicate area, playing somebody with developmental challenges. And she managed to pull out this incredibly sympathetic, fully rounded, three-dimensional depiction of a character that so many other people would have done so much worse. And, it really shows what a good actor she is. And that episode 10, as we call it, the Peppisode, is like, again, it's like you don't really get that sort of thing on TV. I've never seen anything like it, Yeah,
it was really nice to see to devote like a whole episode to that character. She really shined, nailed it.
Yeah, really, it's so sad. Some sad bits.
Now, I know you're headed to Australia soon. If you would like to tell people why.
Yes, me and my wife Julie Atlas Muse are going to Australia very soon to do our cabaret show, The Freak and the Showgirl, which has its own Facebook page if you want to check it out, which is a mixture of cabaret, sexy sideshow, striptease, comedy, song, designed for festivals. We really go there. Other people say they go there and don't, but we actually go very, very there. And then we're also doing our Smash Hit show that I mentioned earlier. Beauty and the Beast, we're bringing our puppeteers over and the director's coming over and the lighting designer. It's like a big swanky affair, that one, for the Adelaide Arts Festival. And then me and Julie are ending up doing a week at the Spiegel tent with the Freak and the Showgirl again in Melbourne. And this is all to extend our stay in Australia, because London and New York, our two homes, the weather is fucking shit until about the middle of April. I'm so sick of winter by the middle of February that we just haul our asses to Australia. I would love to be in an Australian film. And if you're talking about Australian horror, have you ever seen Bad Boy Bubby?
I have not seen Bad Boy Bubby. But I'm
Please
look
it down now. Bad Boy Bubby. It's fucking weird. There's incest in it. I'm warning you now. Mm-hmm. It's not sibling incest either. It's intergenerational.
It's like grandfather.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's we got through Elves. Did you see that movie Elves? No, I mentioned it. It's a terrible Christmas movie. It has incest. If you like really crummy, crappy movies, it's hard to get through because it's so bad. But if you watch it with other people, it's fantastic.
Do you mean Elf or Elves?
Elves.
It's called Elves.
I have not seen
The basic idea is it's incest with the grandfather and the granddaughter with an elf to try to impregnate her with an elf to bring back the
granddaughter
Nazis. It's very
product
bizarre.
of incest between the grandfather and the grandmother. The granddaughter doesn't know that. He's wheelchair bound. Turns out he was a Nazi. This is part of the Nazi master plan to create this master race. He was going to take the evil elf, which is more really of like this weird little monster, and breed it with the girl, with the granddaughter, and then they would have a master race of elf Nazis.
Sounds good.
And it's based on a true story.
It's something.
I've got... my best friend Dan is a movie buff, and he's got like 2,000 films at his house, and he's pretty much got all the horror films. I do have the entire box set of Hammer horror films, and you know that if I was to be placed in a horror film quiz, my specialist subject would have to be Hammer horror films. Not that I'm particularly knowledgeable about it. It's just that it's the British way of life. Hammer horror. I mean, with their wobbly sets and, they're the same guys playing Christopher Lee played Dracula many, many times. Peter Cushing was always Van Helsing, kind of comforting to us, but do you guys see the Hammer horror films? Have you ever seen them?
I haven't seen a ton of them. I was just watching one the other day. It was Dracula's Bride.
Ah, yes. Classic. I like the mid-70s ones. Because they were losing their form a bit and becoming a little bit more about the 70s, and it was all getting a bit weird, and I like that. The Devil Rides Out, a great one. My mum was in Rasputin the Mad Monk playing a dancing girl in the cafe scene.
Very cool.
Yes. I love Hammer horror. Budgets are so small in Britain for small films that they can often look very cheap in retrospect compared to American ones, but I still love them.
I wasn't sure if I was going to bring this up or not, but since you brought up moms, my mom was watching some of your videos since I mentioned that you were going to be on the show, and she watches American Horror Story with me. She loves it. And so she was watching some of your Beauty and the Beast videos, and she had mentioned to me, and I'll clean up a little bit, but she's like, he's really well endowed, but she used another phrase, and it was very weird to hear from my mom telling me that, but I thought I'd bring it up and let you know.
Awkward moment. Oh my God. What can I say? Maybe it's because my arms are so small. It looks bigger. I don't know.
I gotta stop working out. I got the big arms. Maybe that's my problem.
Okay. I have my father's penis. Not actually.
Not the actual thing, right?
I didn't graft it on. But I remember my father was gay, and we lived together for a while, me, him, and his boyfriend, when I was in my teens. And, there was a lot of nudity because we're all actors and people who don't give a fuck about nudity, basically. And I remember, I never really thought, wow, Dad, you got a big cock. I just thought, oh, my cock looks like your cock. Oh, I wonder if it's hereditary. Yeah. When you look down at your cock, it doesn't look so big. I mean, people have told me I've got a big one, but I don't know what to say. I don't know what to fucking say. Thank you, Satan.
Yeah, I didn't know what to say when my mom told me either. I was just like, oh, okay, that's very nice. I'll be sure
I don't know
to bring
what to
that
say
up
about your mom telling you now.
Yeah, exactly.
It is kind of, that could have been awkward. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's totally fine. I also met our webmaster is from England, and I asked him if he saw Kung Fu Flid. And he was like, you can't. Well, first of all, he was telling me, he's like, what? He's like, you can't use that word here, and I was like, I didn't know what it meant. And then he explained to me what Flid was. Was that a problem? The actual title of the movie in England?
Well, I mean, I was the Flid at school because that was the derogatory word for thalidomide. But then, we all reclaimed it like the N word by the hip hop community, and it's a celebration word, like freak to me now. I'm happy to call myself a Flid. And because it was a pastiche of the title Kung Fu Karate Kid, it was originally going to be the Karate Flid. Then it was Kung Fu Flid, like Kung Fu Panda, Kung Fu Flid. And then we got a distribution deal. And the guy was like, because it is considered a really offensive word in Britain. And so, the distributor said, yeah, I'll distribute the film, but you have to retitle it. I am not distributing a film with that title. So it became Unarmed but Dangerous eventually. But I always liked Kung Fu Flid. But I can appreciate why any Brit would be a little horrified by that. Yeah. That's like calling something, the nocturnal and then N-word. And then people expect to find that funny. And you're like, yeah.
But yeah, besides Annabelle and I, most people wouldn't find that humorous, I guess.
But it's a terrible film. But it has some good bits in it. I did enjoy the torture scene. We did that for 2 days. This guy torturing me teetering, being hung by the neck, smashed in the face, teetering on the chair, proper torture stuff. I will let you into a secret. I've never told anyone this before, but the guys that made the film were, film producers, but they had some very gangstery mates. And occasionally when we needed a couple of bouncer characters or what have you, someone would say, I'll just get Billy to send a couple of boys down from the club. And that's why I got knocked out one day, because one of the guys in the fight just punched me on the chin and knocked me out. And I mean, I was conscious by the time I hit the floor, but it was like a millisecond. He actually knocked me out because he hit one of my buttons just on the chin in the middle. And I was like, cut, mate. We're not actually meant to hit each other. It's called screen combat, not actual combat. It's like, oh yeah, sorry, mate. Like, so it's a bit like that sometimes. Anyway, for the torture scene, this new guy suddenly appeared on it around. And, you're having coffee while they set up the lights. And like, hiya, who are you? Oh, they've asked me to come down to make sure it looks real. Like, oh, yeah. What do you mean, make sure it looks real? Well, it's what I do. I was like, walked off thinking, what the fuck does he mean? Does he mean he fucking tortures people for a fucking job? What the fuck? Anyway, and they did a beautiful tracking shot. It's all like rusty saws and drills dripping with blood and juxtaposed against like orchestral music. It's a lovely shot. And we're standing there looking at it, me and this guy. And he goes, yeah, it's pretty realistic. I go, wow, what with the drill and everything? And he goes, there's a pause, and he looks at me, and to say steely-eyed, I almost shat myself there and then, the way he looked at me. And he went, actually, it's quite impressive, the amount of information you can get from somebody for just one thumb screw. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Bye.
And here you are to tell the tale.
That guy was for real.
Yeah, that's amazing. We need to get him on the show.
No.
He had a false name.
Yeah.
Forget about it. And I did ask him one question. I said, how much? He said, it starts at 100 grand.
Oh, okay. Maybe we won't get him on the
show. Oh, scary.
So,
by the way, I loved gore porn. I loved the Hostel series. And I think it's one of the rare examples of a sequel being better than the first one. Just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah. Well, that's a really that's something people are really either they love or they hate, the what they call torture porn films.
Yes. Yes.
And so
it's more of that dirty stuff no one wants to touch because it's terribly offensive, and I don't understand. I was getting pretty annoyed about it the other day that I can sit and watch a show like you're familiar with Law and Order.
Yeah.
Crime series. So you can watch any of these crime series, and they'll have stuff, realistic stuff about very violent sexual abuse and things that are very real, and it's presented in a very real way, and they can watch that show over and over and over again without batting an eye, but they won't watch horror or consider horror porn entertainment. I don't understand. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's more honest, isn't it? As well. I agree with you. I agree. It doesn't make sense to me. I suppose people like a degree of facade around their horrific experience. I don't know why, but horror fans are a different breed. And I definitely count myself as a horror fan. I love to be thrilled. A good horror film is just the Aristotle creedy thing, isn't it? The Aristotelian influence, which is, you set up a situation that the audience recognizes as so-called real life, or they can do, and then somebody does stuff that just breaks all the rules of decent society. Everyone's horrified by that, and then the person is punished, usually by being killed, and everybody thinks, phew, I'm glad society is ordered again. And they've had their little thrill, but they can go back to normality. I guess most horror films do that.
Now, I assume you haven't been to a horror convention, but now
not yet. Yeah. But I am booked in for. I'm booked in for Chiller in New Jersey.
Oh, very cool. Oh, great. That's not far from us.
Yeah. So, it's pending a job. I've just had an audition for a big film that's so big, I'm sure I won't get it. But if I did, it's a 3-month job, and I might have to cancel that. But I'm intending to do that one and one in May. More of a Comic-Con, that one. But Chiller is a horror con, isn't it? Yeah. I'm looking forward to that, man. I've never done one, and it's all I love. Sitting in a hotel functions room while people dressed as Kick-Ass walk past. But I'd rather they were dressed as one of the Xenobites from Hellraiser.
Yes.
No, that's a little bit old school. I know. Sorry, I drew that one out of.
Oh no! Last year we had Cenobite Month and had everybody on the show. It was excellent. Yeah.
Here we had Doug Bradley and Bobby Wilde and Tom Bamford and Nicholas Vince. So they were the 4 main Cenobites. Yeah. Well, Barbie was from the second. She was a female Cenobite from the second film.
Yeah. And I actually designed the banner that Barbie Wilde and Simon Bamford use at conventions. Which I'm very proud of. You had a
band with them?
No, I designed their banner that they have.
Did you just say you had a band with them?
No, that would be amazing. Yes, that was a Cenobite band.
That would be incredible.
No, we did make cocktails and had a cocktail contest with them, though. That was something. Yeah, like 12 different cocktails.
Well, I've invented, I think, the world's only horror band. Well,
really?
No, I'm saying, I think in terms of rock bands, which is my genre, the only really horror band, I mean, you could say Gwar. Of course, Gwar were a horrific band. And I suppose Slipknot are horrific because they have masks and that's scary, even though their average age of their listenership is 11, apparently. I think that the Cramps are the original and best horror band. And I've formed a band called the Spasms with ZMS, by the way, and with a guy called Velvet Crayon as a very deformed, awesome axe god in a wheelchair, who's a crazy motherfucker with the biggest dick I've ever fucking seen. And the tall guy, almost giantish, Ken Ball, on bass, but he wears a schoolgirl uniform. And then and we're going to be doing trying to do Cramps style horror music for burlesque and striptease events. That's one of my little hobby projects for this year.
That's very cool. Perhaps we could play some of the music on the show at some point.
I'd love to.
You host our Artist of the Month. So it's a month, and you just give us tracks you'd like us to play, and we play them throughout the month. We have horror bands every month. Every month there's some horror-ish band that plays for us. A lot of it is punk.
Are they mostly death metal kind of stuff?
A lot of it's punk.
Honestly, a lot of it is punk music.
Oh, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love punk. I mean, I'd be delighted to. Throw me an email or a Facebook message telling me what you want me to do and how much. Because I've just agreed to do another vetting thing for another competition, and I have to look through about 200 different things and mark each thing. So that's going to take me a bit of time over the next month. But maybe in March I could do it, or April.
Yeah, that'd be great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, March we actually have a German band called The Other, if you're not familiar with them. But The Other?
The Other.
It's a
I've
German,
heard of them, but I don't think I've heard them.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. But so, you mentioned...
Yeah, go on. Sorry, I keep wanting to ask you questions.
No,
ask
us questions. That would be great.
Well, do you guys know writers and producers and directors of horror genre films?
Like personally, or?
Well, professionally and or personally, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people that we've got to know through the show, that we met at different. Yeah.
Tell them I want a job.
All right.
So,
we'll do that. Yeah.
Because I promise you, I really want that to make. I really want to be that guy that kills other disabled people. I think it's really a fucking creepy idea.
I like that idea, honestly. Not just because you're here and we're having fun and stuff. I think that's a great idea.
And because it's genuinely, because it's so obviously the work of a lunatic and misguided.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best villains are mentally imbalanced.
And I think the best villains are doing something that they think is right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The best villains don't act evil.
Exactly.
Yes. As in at the very end of Psycho, as you could quite obviously see, I wouldn't even hurt a fly, is the line. And then his face comes up, Anthony Perkins, you're like, dude, you are fucking psycho!
That's my favorite horror movie of all time, actually. Yeah. You mentioned Twitter and stuff. What's the best way people can follow you or get in touch with you?
Well, I've got a fan page, Matt Fraser, but I'm deleting a lot of fans from my personal page because much as I love all the pleasant comments and stuff, it kind of gets in the way of me doing my regular friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for now, I would love to say Matt_Fraser is... No, hold on a sec. No, Matt_Fraser. My Twitter would be a really good way. So tweet me. And if you want stuff or something from me, then Facebook message me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, actually,
I answer everything, but sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah. Before the show started this season, actually, Lawrence Harvey from Human Centipede 2,
old Lawrence Harvey. Love him.
Okay, excellent. He's a friend of ours, and he was the one who suggested. He's like, "This is perfect casting, and you guys have to get Matt Fraser on the show."
Oh, how nice! You know, the last time I saw him was that the British Film Institute re-released with a special new grading film, Freaks, and I was asked to say a few words at the beginning, and it was at National Film Theatre, and Lawrence was there at the screening, and we had a good old chat, and he was telling me about Centipede at the time. It was a long way ahead of it happening, and I've not seen number 2, but my God, because I follow him on Twitter, and he has so many babes.
Yeah, he does.
Babes.
Yeah.
It's incredible, right?
And I've hung out with him many times, and he gets the babes are always after him.
Yeah.
He's got a girlfriend now, and she's very nice.
I'm sure. I didn't mean that he's doing the babes. He's got a big fan base of babes. Exactly. But I'd love to see Human Centipede 2. Have you seen it, guys?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, we love those movies.
Yeah, that's how we met each
The
other.
third one's
Was
coming.
through Human Centipede.
Third one's on play.
You met through Human Centipede. How romantic.
We did. I did a painting because I make art, and I painted Dr. Hyder, who's the villain in the first film, and posted it. And Neil, I didn't know Neil. He saw it, and then he said, I interviewed this person, and then we had conversation, and then we found out we had the same disgusting sense of humor and like horror movies, and we've been friends ever since.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah. And she's the only person I suggested to watch a Serbian film and didn't think I was totally insane afterwards. So it was good.
Right. I am going to try and check that out. I'm just actually going to write it down now.
Yeah.
So I forget.
Everyone else had the same exact, when they watched it, they just came back to me and said, what is wrong with you? But,
Great. I'm going to challenge Dan to find it.
Yeah.
And then we can watch it together.
Yeah.
We just saw Kingsman 2 nights ago. And I have to say, although it's fantastic, I didn't think it was Samuel L. Jackson's best work. He plays the baddie in it, the evil baddie. Given what he's planning to do, I wasn't scared enough of him. I wasn't scared of him at all, I'm afraid.
It's hard.
Is it hard?
You just know him from so many things. It's when you make it. I feel it when you have he was in Star Wars, and he's just so known. Pulp Fiction. I feel like it's a really difficult for the actor to break away from that.
Probably, yeah, probably.
Well, is there anything else you would like to tell the people out there who are listening and are fans of yours that you haven't got a chance to tell them?
No, thanks for watching American Horror Story. I, like you, really enjoyed it. If any of you out there are nervously wondering whether I'll be offended if you offer me your cheap shit, pain in the ass job, I probably think again, because if it's interesting and it allows me to be in a horror film and even be evil, which is what I'm really craving, I could do really good evil guy. Someone give me a chance. That's all I wanted to say. Otherwise, I'm just thrilled to talk to you guys. Thank you, technology. Thank you guys. Thank you, Without Your Head. Thank you for my excellent logo, the montage you made of all those photos of me. And I've really enjoyed talking to you both.
Excellent. We hope to have you back sometime. Unless you get too big that you can never talk to us again.
No, hopefully the next time I talk to you will be because we're plugging a bloody horror film.
Exactly. I like that idea. Yeah.
Might be a killer if that works out for both of our groups of people.
Okay, well, maybe I'll see you at Chiller, and we can record a few little bits and bobs for a program.
That would be excellent. All right.
And when I get this David Lynch thing up, I'll send it to you. Okay.
Oh, that would be great. We'd love that.
Great. All right, guys. Nice one.
Bye.
Great to talk to you.
Hello, this is Graham Humphreys. I'm an illustrator based in the UK in London. And my career began with The Evil Dead for Sam Raimi, and it continues now, and I'm enjoying doing lots of very horrible things with paint.